Welcome to everyone to Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, the websites by plebes or plebs. Drop us a like, subscribe. Joining us today is fellow Bitcoiner JW Weatherman from YetiCold.com. He's going to join us for all the fun, but right now, you know where we're going, and if you don't, I'm telling you, we're going to the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time!
At the time of this recording, the block height is 696,128. The Bitcoin price, 46,240. Chain rewrite days, 991. We're finally below 1K. We kind of stayed up there for a while. Anyways, total public Lightning capacity, 2,288.5. Sats per dollar, 2,163. And blocks to the halvening, 143,872.
Getting closer. Every 10 minutes, this is getting closer. But listen, overall good numbers. You know, we're consolidating. But again, the signal, not the noise, is that Lightning Network keeps crawling up. I think last episode we did, it was 2,000. It was 70. Now it's 88. Right. So, man, I don't know what's going on with Lightning, but I hope it keeps going in that direction.
I love the Lightning. I'm pissed that we got shut down at 48K, but again, we don't speculate and we don't really care, but still, you know, kind of got shut down there.
Well, I'm sure things are gonna move very quickly, very soon. That's a little hint. Anyways,
Whatever.
Phil, it's time for it.
The daily fail. That's right. You knew we were eventually gonna cover the repeat offender that is Frances Coppola, right? She's definitely part of the circle of number one enemies of Bitcoin. Anyways, she's here to educate us. So before, let's just keep in mind what we've learned. We've learned that pizza is infinite, okay? And now we're about to be schooled on payments. She's gonna tell us how payments work. Payments 101. For every sender, there is a receiver. Check. That makes sense. If the receiver is not available, the payment can't complete. It's where you kind of start to fall apart. Anyways, you may have recorded the payment on a ledger, but if the recipient hasn't received it, the payment hasn't been made. So how is it recorded on the ledger? You know what? Give me a sec. We're going to maybe she says something a little bit better. And of course, I want to give a shout out to, one of our listeners who originally drew me to this fail, Maikoshi Rusimoto. I like that name. It's not that simple to say, but still, anyways, you're right. It is a fail. And that's why we are digging right into some more ridiculousness from Francis. Okay, let's go. The point is that unless you and your friend leave your hardware wallets online all the time, even overnight, which is a stupid thing to do, you aren't doing 24/7 payments. You're doing payments within a small time window available to both of you. I want you guys to see the mental gymnastics that this person is going through to craft this complete nonsense narrative that only, the only reason she thinks it makes sense is because she truly believes she's always right, which is what it says in her bio, unless she changed it. Anyways, let's continue on this. Suppose you're in New York and your friend is in Australia. That's a 14-hour time difference. So if you message your friend at 10 a.m. Eastern to say you're sending BTC, your friend isn't even going to answer your message, let alone plug in their wallet. They are asleep. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, what is the point she's trying to make? So is she saying that, like, she can make bank transfers to friends while they're asleep? Is that what's happening in her world? Is that the use case? Everybody's sending money to people that are asleep, and this is somehow like a huge problem? Why isn't the money getting to them while they're asleep? This is so strange to me. Anyways, okay, let's finish it up. So you have to wait until they're awake. If they have an online wallet, you can make a payment. But now you're back to stupidly unsafe practices, aren't we? Truth is, there's no such thing as 24/7 P2P. The hype around this is ridiculous. Oh my gosh. She really doesn't understand how it works, right? If you have a recipient's address and you send them Bitcoin, if the transaction is recorded to the ledger, they received the Bitcoin. She doesn't seem to understand how that works. It doesn't make a difference if your wallet is connected to the internet or to a computer or anything like that. Anyways, Nico.
I didn't know it. It doesn't need to, it doesn't need to be, dude. In literally in one of my cold storage setups, man. Like, literally this wallet is never connected to the internet ever, right? But I know that if I give one of those addresses to send to you, to give to me, I know that I'm gonna get that Bitcoin, and I don't have to be online for that, right? So. Look, but I just want to comment something on Frances, right? And it kind of really makes me a little bit upset, right? She's constantly shifting the goalpost, right? And the reason that she's doing that is look. You could just look at her description, right? Her bio, man. She wrote a book about QE. She wrote about QE for the people, right? And the thing about Bitcoin is that it makes, right, that world completely obsolete, right? It destroys her reason, her purpose, right? She spent all these years studying, all these, Keynesian economic models and all these things. And then you have Bitcoin coming out of nowhere that, it's essentially Bitcoin's the car and she's still selling horses, So, like, she's reacting, she's not being sincere. She either chooses not to understand it because her incentives mean she shouldn't understand it, or she's a straight up fraud, right? I believe it's the first one. I believe that because she spent so much time, learning about, the legacy system, I think that she's a firm believer, and she has to move the goalpost constantly in order to fit her arguments, so it's just ridiculous, man. I don't know why we give these people a platform, dude. Who the heck cares what they think, man? They're gonna have fun staying poor. They could scream at the sky all they want. They could say anything they want about Bitcoin, but it's not gonna change anything. Anyways, JW, what do you think about the infamous Frances?
Yeah, I loved Max Kaiser's take on this. He said she was the crazy cat lady that was high on toxoplasmosis. That's exactly what it is. I mean, she's totally clueless. I don't think she knows the fiat system either. I mean, Saifedean's publishing that book, The Fiat Standard, pretty soon, or maybe it just came out. He's had to take time to go actually study how this stuff works, where these things actually come from, money and credit creation and all that sort of stuff. These people that are in academia and that write for Forbes and put out economics books that are, mostly targeted at undergrads or even people in master's degree programs, they can be very, very stupid because there's not really any substance that they ever have to, they're all just creating fantasy and layering fantasy on top of fantasy. And Bitcoin is technology, and it's actually interacts with the real world. So you see these people that are they're just narrative creators, and they think that they're smart, but they've never had to interact with reality. They start interacting with Bitcoin, and you're just like, man, these people are just not that bright, right? You just see how stupid they are. Paul Graham is a good example of somebody that I've really thought was a super smart guy. I haven't known him directly, but a few degrees away, and I've seen him make a lot of good investments. And you think that he's a smart guy, but then you realize when he interacts with Bitcoin, the other day he tweeted out that one of his friends that's never wrong about financial things is dumping his Bitcoin for Ethereum. And immediately you're just like, oh, this guy's a complete jackass. He just has no idea what he's talking about. He's made a bunch of investments out of some degree of luck, but he's even the mindset of that, right? You would expect a technology investor to understand the technology and then make an investment decision. So he's revealing so much about his own stupidity in that one tweet. And we just get to watch these people just run into the brick wall that is actual technology.
It goes back to, I love that point that you made about essentially intellectuals in academia, right? They're in a classroom, Okay, the same applies to, Marxism, right? He created this, this, if you look at it on paper and you read the idea, right, it's communism is beautiful, right? But when you try to implement it in the real world, right, it doesn't work, right? So it applies to what you're saying with Frances, right? It's just, she lives in a classroom, right? She's an intellectual, right? She comes up with all these, these ideas that I guess there's like a circle jerk of intellectuals that say, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. But when those ideas actually hit, the rubber meets the road, it's stupid. They don't work, right? And Bitcoin does work, right? How do we know that Bitcoin is truth? Because it's anchored to the truth by proof of work, right? So yeah, man, it's an excellent point. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review, sponsored by
Citadel 21.
All right, everybody, the meme for today is brought to us by a fellow plebe, the Bitcoinator. You go follow him at Bitcoin_ator. Anyways, it says, trust the experts. Tell me the truth. I'm ready to hear it. You can't receive Bitcoin when you're offline. And I think that's a picture of Frances.
Yeah, it is, and it's not even doctored. She actually looks like that.
Man, Bitcoinator, savage meme. And for that, I'm gonna give it this Crypto Cloaks pin. But Crypto Cloaks, Rick, you kind of messed up, my dude, because I'm giving you free advertising, and it's not big enough. People can't see it. Just some feedback. Anyways, Phil, what would you rate that meme?
very small pin, and I would have never guessed it was Crypto Cloaks.
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm like, look, I'm gonna wear it proudly, this Crypto Cloaks pin, but you can't even see it. Needs to be a little bigger, at least. Anyways, Phil.
All right, I am going with a head of lettuce. Can you see it?
It's an invisible head of lettuce.
I don't know. It's not really working, is it? All right, well, forget the head of lettuce then. We're going with the carrots, the trusty carrots.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
It's definitely a vegetable one. It's in honor of Francis Coppola. So it's a vegetable score.
So it's a good score so far. A Crypto Cloaks pin. Rick, please make it bigger so I can show it off. Some carrots, some nice IKEA carrots, and JW. What would you rate that meme?
I'm going to rate that a Karen toxoplasmosis.
I have no idea how I'm
You're gonna have to Google this.
Yeah, I have no idea how I'm gonna put that in post. What is that a thing? Is that real?
That's the disease that you get if you're around too much cat shit. Toxoplasmosis.
Okay, I'm gonna come up with something. Don't worry. That's an incredible score. Love it. Toxic plasmosis. Maybe I find the Kaiser clip when he says it. I don't know. I'll come up with something. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News, sponsored by
Crypto Cloaks.
All right, everybody, check this out. We reported this usually when it happened. Actually,
this is old.
Simply Bitcoin, this was like one of our the third month into the show. But anyways, I was on a Spaces with JW, and he started saying some very interesting things in relation to Bitcoin and insurance companies. So I'm just going to pull up this article just to kind of give you guys a refresher, and then I'm going to hand it over to JW. So anyways, just check out the article. It's by Bloomberg. 169-year-old Mass Mutual is huge, invests $100 million into Bitcoin. Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Co. has purchased $100 million in Bitcoin for its general investment fund, the latest mainstream firm to dabble in digital assets. Now, here is the signal, right? They're not just purchasing Bitcoin, right? The mutual insurer also acquired a $5 million minority equity stake in NYDIG. NYDIG was and Ross Stevens, he is a person responsible for Bitcoin for institutions. When Michael Saylor did that whole presentation, that's NYDIG, right? So why is an insurance company getting exposure to that? Anyways, Moving on to the next article, it's called "Do You Take Bitcoin? Why insurers are considering Bitcoin and shitcoin payments." Anyways, it goes on to say, AXA Switzerland has concluded that this growing demand represents an opportunity and has become the first large insurer to support Bitcoin premium payments. One reason that insurers are willing to receive payments in Bitcoin is that they need the currency to pay claims. A recent U.S. survey from technology and financial services firm, here it is again, NYDIG, found that half of respondents wanted to receive insurance claims payments in Bitcoin. I would want that too. Over 75% expressed interest in Bitcoin annuities and life insurance, right? So why, and I'm going to pass this on to JW because I'm really not educated on the subject. Why are we having so much interest from insurance companies? Why are they so interested in Bitcoin?
I think the main reason they're interested right now is that they're doing what a lot of companies are doing. They're just trying to find a way to not have their savings just eroded away. And they really need to be able to, like, the insurance companies need to be able to hold a lot of assets because you're betting with them that something bad's going to happen to you, right? When you get car insurance, you're betting that you're going to get in a car accident or your car is going to get smashed or you're going to smash somebody else's car. And they're betting that that doesn't happen, right? And they give you odds, right? So you pay $50 a month and you get 50,000 in coverage or something like that. So it really is just a back and forth bet. But in order for them to be credit worthy, right? For us to be able to say, okay, I'll give you $50 a month because I know that you're going to pay out if something bad happens to me. I want to know that that insurance company has a lot of assets, right? I wouldn't agree to that with just the neighbor or the guy down the street, right? So their credibility and their ability to pay out, even if something bad happens to a lot of people at the same time, is super important to me as somebody that's on the other side of that bet. So they have to hold a lot of assets, and they can't just buy back stock constantly. They actually have to own things, and Bitcoin is a really obvious solution to that. And I think in the long run, they're going to start realizing that they can actually automate a lot of what they do on top of something like Bitcoin. And if you think about insurance as just a bet, right? You're betting that something bad happens to you. Well, it's pretty obvious that we're going to have a lot of betting happening on Bitcoin with things like DLCs and simplicity and other things that are coming out that just give us more rich smart contracts. And that gets really interesting because if we actually get to the point where we can make bets on anything, including things that we would traditionally call insurance companies are starting to become incentivized to provide like basically military-like services at a certain point, because you could bet, for example, that your property is not going to be stolen from you, even by a government. And that gets really interesting. That's some very sci-fi stuff where maybe Mass Mutual needs to have its own military. You're in Zimbabwe. It's easier to imagine it in a third world country. You buy insurance that your factory doesn't get messed with. Mass Mutual is in a position to save a lot of money if they can keep people from messing with your factory. So it creates a lot of really exciting incentives.
And it doesn't surprise me at all because, if you read The Sovereign Individual, this is exactly what he was talking about, right? Where violence on a large scale, like on a large, nation states fighting, becomes obsolete, but violence becomes highly localized, right? And this is an example of that, right? And you see it where we're transferring from the industrial age to the information age, right? I could definitely see an insurance having a private army, just to protect their I guess investment. I don't know what the correct term is for that, but Phil, any thoughts on this? This is absolutely mind-blowing.
I was going to say, JW, I really like that. I never thought of insurance in that way, right, in relation to Bitcoin. So that was, for me, like, that's stuff that now I got to, kind of think about for a little bit. But, I mean, look, this is true, right? Like all of a sudden, we're getting to this point where, hey, look, I think that this is kind of part of the decoupling from the state and the money printing, because once you start to get these giant corporations, like, come on, Mass Mutual is not just some willy-nilly, random company. So there's obviously, we know who the players are involved right now. There's going to be more to follow. But when people realize that they just become their own countries and actually become their own sovereign entities, I think Bitcoin just becomes way more appealing.
Bitcoin's the tip of. I mean, right now we're trying to avoid inflation. I think within the next 10 years, we'll be trying to avoid people stealing our stuff in meat space, not just in the digital space. And Bitcoin will allow us to do that.
Absolutely, man. It's so crazy how, the sovereign individual literally understood this in the 90s. Like, it blows my mind. You're literally describing exactly. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic, and we're kind of addressing an elephant in the room, okay? And I had a lot of back and forth with JW when I initially invited him on the show. He's like, "Are you sure you want to invite me on?" A lot of the people don't like that, and I said, "Absolutely. What you said about insurance was fascinating, and I think that a lot of our viewers were definitely going to appreciate that." But I think that a lot of the miscommunication that happened, right? And look, I have a lot of experience with multisig. JW Solution, which I'm going to pull up right now. JW Solution, which you could find on yeticold.com. It's an incredible solution. Okay, this is a great solution. This is one of the best solutions that you could have to secure your Bitcoin, right? But I think that a lot of the miscommunications that happen in Twitter, right, and I'm a firm believer of that as well, is that I would never recommend that to somebody. And the reason that I would never recommend that to somebody is because there's a very high probability that they're not going to have the technical know-how how to set it up. If it was my case, right, perhaps I would use it. I'm more of a convenience guy, right? So, I'm a big fan of Casa, Unchained Capital, right? So it's like, there is no perfect security solution in Bitcoin, right? You have to always weigh the pros and cons. What are the pros of Yeti Cold, right? So if you use Casa, for example, as one of your multi-sig solutions, what does Casa get? Casa gets your IP address, Casa gets your pub files, right? And Casa gets one of your keys, right? They might not know your identity, but they have an email, they have your IP address, they have your pub files, right? They know a lot about you, right? So that's a trade-off that you're willing to do. You could set up also, a cold storage. You could set up a multi-sig solution with various hardware wallets, but at the same time, you are trusting in the manufacturer, the hardware wallet manufacturer, right? So it's all different solutions, preferably on what you want. Yeti's solution, and I went through it, is the solution of the apocalyptic Bitcoiner, the Bitcoiner that does not trust anyone, there's no single point of failure here because you're just using parts and you're building everything together, right? So I think that's what a lot of the miscommunication happened in Twitter, is that, I think, personally, JW, that recommending that solution to someone who's not technically capable of is a recipe for disaster. But at the same time, I do appreciate and I do agree with you that your solution is one of the best ways to, have a multi-sig setup. It's just out of the technical capabilities of most people.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good piece of feedback. I think what you're actually interacting with, though, is talking points that have been developed by people like Casa that spend a lot of money trying to manipulate people's understanding on Twitter. The reality is that if you're using Casa, they have control of your keys. I would sooner have my keys on Coinbase than I would have them on Casa. So let me walk you through this. Right now, you sign up for Casa. Their standard thing is a 2 of 3 multi-sig. It's Casa Gold. You give them $50 a month. And the reason that it's worth going into this is that it illustrates something very important. And that is that you really need to use free open source software, and it needs to be super popular, because if it's not free and open source and super popular, it's not being code reviewed. So what you have with Casa is there's 3 keys involved and 2 are needed to spend. One key you might have on a hardware wallet. And there are privacy problems with that because they'll ship out the hardware wallet to you, and that's not great. The other key, they actually just hold, right? That's part of their service. So they have the other key. The third key is actually in closed source software that's on your phone. That's the standard setup. And the problem with closed source software is that we don't know what it does.
JW, let me stop you there. Okay, let me stop you there because I agree with every single thing you just said, and I am highly critical, and I've said this to Lop many times.
But you didn't let me get to the punchline. The punchline is they control 2 of your keys. They have a spending threshold of keys. Because the second key that's in the phone wallet that's closed source, we don't know what that code does. That code, for example, could say, okay, on the 31st of October, we're going to sign any transaction that we see. Who knows what's going on there, right? Or any transaction that goes to Lop's wallet is going to be automatically signed. So you're completely trusting that that code is going to be safe for you, which is worse. It's more plausible deniability than if you just gave a spending threshold of keys to Coinbase, which is what you do when you deposit it. And I'm one of the few people that have beat this drum. And as a result, they've come up with all kinds of crazy things about what kind of a scammer I am. And, I've interacted with quite a few wealthy folks on Twitter that are going to be affected if a lot of people understand just how awful CASA is.
So I fundamentally agree with the fact that if you use if you use the solution, right? They call it the seed. And I hate that they call this, right, the seedless setup, which is completely reckless. If you use the CASA key on your phone that comes with the app, that is reckless. You're trusting, right, a third party with 2 of your keys, right? Because there's no way to verify that software. However, right, the CASA 2 of 3 setup gives you an option to use 2 independent hardware wallet devices. So there is no freaking way they're going to be able to spend from that, right? Because you're using one hardware wallet as one seed, and you're using a separate hardware wallet as another seed, right? And you're not buying any of those hardware wallets from CASA themselves, right? So again, is that a perfect setup? Is that better than your setup? No. Why is it not perfect? Because again, CASA has your IP address, CASA knows your balance, CASA has your pub files, right? CASA has your email, but at the same time, dude, they can't just take your Bitcoin, right? Because it's a 2 of 3. They would need at least one other spending key, and they don't have that, right?
Here's the thing. Most people are going to sign up for the service, and they're going to accept the defaults. They're going to assume that the company that they trust.
I get what
because this is the relationship that this comes back to Yeti. The relationship that I have with people that come to Yeti is if they trust me to be even slightly competent, they're going to assume that I've thought about the world from their perspective. So if I've built a solution that they can't follow, if they can't actually implement it safely, then I'm incompetent at my job. And if all the defaults that I've put into the system and all the recommendations of how many keys total you have and all of where you should store them and all of those sort of things are bad for the type of typical user that's going to show up, then I suck at my job, right, as a software developer. So it's not like I could say, okay, I've built this expert software and it's just out there. If I was going to do that as somebody that's competent, I would have warnings all over the place that would say, look, if you don't have this level of expertise, this solution is not right for you. So defaults and the guidance that's actually built into the software is something that we should all be held accountable for. And the reality is that more than 90% of the people that open any software do exactly what they're told because they trust that they're in the herd, that they're following the defaults. They don't know whether they should use multiple hardware wallets. The whole point of this is that you're targeting people that don't know, otherwise they wouldn't be coming to you, right? So it's very disingenuous. And this is this is what shitcoiners have been doing for a long time. And now you're seeing it with security products. It's like, hey, this is how it works. And then you say, well, this is very, very bad and very broken. And it's like, well, you don't have to do it that way, right? You don't have to use this Solidity smart contract. You don't have to do this or that. But they know, and we know, that most people are going to come to the thing and use it in a certain way, and it's a dumpster fire. So with Yeti, I appreciate your pushback that, hey, this is dangerous, but I'm telling you that it's not. And that the only reason you've heard that is that there's people that have worked very hard to try to discredit.
I haven't heard that, my friend. I literally read. My friend.
Did you go through? Dude, you're lying. You did not go through the process.
JW, I went through the thing,
you didn't go through the process.
I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you that for me, I could do that. I could do that. I have the capability, which is why I endorsed you. And
which level did you go through?
Dude, I went through 3, I went through 2, I went through 1, and that's exactly why.
How many hours did it take you to set up level 3?
Yeti, put that aside, dude. JW, put that aside.
Right.
What I'm trying to tell you. Listen,
let me chill it out a little bit. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm hoping you guys are going to edit this out. But what I'm telling you is I know you haven't gone through the setup.
JW,
if you think that people are going to lose funds.
Listen, man, we never claimed that, dude. I'm telling you, bro, listen, I invited you on the show because I actually believe that Yeti Cold is a very good solution. And this is what I said in the very beginning. I believe that your setup is very good. But what I also believe, this is what I was telling you, right, is that I would never recommend that to someone because I know for a fact they don't have the technical know-how doing it themselves without me holding their hands, right? One of the benefits of CASA.
So what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Like if you sent a normal, regular, everyday guy to yeticold.com, what are you worried about is going to happen? They're going to get frustrated and give up, or they're going to do something stupid and lose money?
Okay, so frustration, give up, or they're going to do something stupid and lose money. Either or.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what. But I'll tell you what.
Through the setup process, you would know that it's basically impossible for them to lose money. Because I know what I'm doing and I've put in a ton of checks. So you have to do multiple deposits. You have to do multiple test withdrawals. You have to restore your wallet 6 ways from Sunday. I tell you exactly when to get your seed packets offline. I walk you through this whole process and it's very tedious and people do give up, but people don't lose money because it's good software.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you, dude. Right? That's what I'm trying to tell you, dude. Like, that's what, look, from the very beginning, I said specifically, I'm like, dude, you have one of the best that I've seen for a multi-sig storage setup, right? And I also told you, I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. I said, listen, what CASA does, where they had this seedless setup, where they just want you to trust, the key on your phone of which they developed the ad for is a good, it's a good seed. That is reckless. And I agree. I think that being the default, when you download the CASA app, it's very, it's not good practice on them. It's like anti-Bitcoin. I agree with all of those points, right? But at the same time, right, if I'm recommending a multi-sig setup to someone, right, what am I going to do? I'm going to recommend them the CASA app, and I'm going to walk them through and set them up with 2 individual hardware wallets, or maybe they do the 3 of 5. Where CASA only holds 1 key and then they hold the rest of the keys, right? Is it better than your solution? No, your solution, it's more, you're not trusting anybody. It's more private, right? Your IP address doesn't get exposed, right? You're not trusting any specific manufacturer. So I understand what you're saying. All I'm saying, and I think that this was the miscommunication on Twitter, and Phil, perhaps you could jump in on this, is that, dude, it's tedious, right? It's tedious, and it requires a lot of steps, dude. And you have to at least have some type of computer technical skill, right? And most people, they're getting into Bitcoin, right? Think about the shift in mentality going from the fiat world to the Bitcoin world, and you start talking about 24-word seed phrases. People are like, "What the fuck does that mean?" You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not criticizing your setup. I would have never invited you on the show if I didn't feel like your setup was legit. Let
me clarify though. Okay, so there's 2 things you're saying. One is totally true, and I say this all the time. It's annoying to set up. Like if you set up Yeti level 3, it's going to ruin your weekend, right? I've said that a million times. But that's why we recommend it only for $50,000 or more. If you do Yeti level 1 setup, it's still annoying. It's going to be 2 or 3 hours of being annoying. So that I completely agree with. The talking point that a lot of the people that are being affected, either hardware wallet guys, CASA, Unchained, any of these guys that are being affected by the knowledge that I'm trying to put out there around the importance of using free open source software, the talking point they use against me is that people are going to lose funds. That's actually wrong. And the reason for that is that it's good software. So it's got all kinds of checks and balances and all kinds of safety switches involved that so far nobody's even claimed that they lost funds. And nobody's ever claimed that they got themselves into a foot gun situation where they might have lost funds. So that's the distinction that I'm trying to make. Fair
enough. Phil, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, no. So for me, I never, definitely never thought or think that you're a scammer. So I don't know where people ended up getting that from. But yeah, my only point was you actually ended up blocking me like a year ago, and it was specifically because I said that it's a niche solution for a certain subsect of Bitcoiners. So like that's, and again, I think it goes back to what you guys were talking about, and it's not a criticism, it's not a criticism. It's just that, how it goes, right? You get a lot of noobs, like we get a lot of questions from people that know very little, in some cases don't even have a smartphone. And
yeah. So, and just to kind of wrap this up, right? Dude, your solution is great. And I went through it, dude. I literally went through it, and I think it's great. I think it works great. I think that for a specific type of individuals that really, 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 this is why I called you the apocalyptic Bitcoiner, right? That really, really are totally sovereign and whatever. Dude, your solution, it's a great freaking solution, right? But that doesn't mean, right, that, that to someone that was just getting into the space, right? And they say they want to try multi-sig, right? They say whatever. It could be extremely intimidating to them and therefore push them away. Do you get what I'm trying to tell you? Right?
Yeah, that's a good reasonable response. And I can explain why I don't agree with it too. I mean, I think it's good for us to have this back and forth. I know it's hard to do it in a super short show. This conversation is the conversation that I want to have. It usually gets very difficult because there are people that are going to be, financially harmed if we have this conversation.
Well, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Because at the end of the day, dude, open source software is the way to go, right? At the end of the day, CASA wants to make money. Unchained Capital wants to make money. So all of a sudden, dude, if you create, right, because here's the key. If you create a multi-sig solution, right, that has the same amount of convenience as CASA, as Unchained, right? It doesn't take you 2 or 3 hours to set up, right? Think about it. They lose business, right? They lose profit. So it makes perfect sense why they would be aggressive, why they would attack you. I understand that.
The other angle is that, like, if it really is bad, like, so you're assuming that like CASA is reasonable, that using a hardware wallet and kind of following the default instructions is reasonable, even at 2 of 3 is reasonable.
No, I don't think it's reasonable, dude. I don't think it's reasonable at all to use the key on your phone as one of the keys, right? I don't think it's reasonable for companies.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, you just tell somebody, like, let's say that you just say, hey, use a cold card, right? They're going to follow a certain set of instructions that are completely unreasonable, that are far worse than just leaving. Let's just look at privacy for a second. If you leave your funds on Coinbase, that's not great, right? Coinbase knows all about it. Coinbase is a big publicly traded company worth billions of dollars. They're going to put some effort into keeping your information private. If you follow the instructions on a cold card, you take your balance, you take your IP address, which is your approximate location. You share all of that with either criminals or, if you're lucky, chain analysis companies. It's the absolute worst. And see, you guys don't know these things. You don't know how bad it is. So that's why I'm saying, look, brother, you need to invest the 3 hours because it's the best way that you can do it. There is no way for you not to share your Bitcoin balance and your approximate location with, at the very least, a shady company, unless you let Bitcoin Core spend a few hours syncing with the network.
Wait a sec.
You can use Cold Card with Bitcoin Core.
Yeah.
If you use Cold Card with Bitcoin Core, you still have to let Bitcoin Core spend a few hours syncing with the network.
But
so what I'm saying is, let me just repeat it again. Unless you let Bitcoin Core spend a few hours syncing with the network, you are giving somebody, probably a very shady company, your approximate location and your Bitcoin balance.
Yeah, but wait. But hold on a second. But that has to do with running your own node. You run your own node.
That's correct.
You're Gucci.
So, yeah. So running your own node is not part of the instructions that come with a cold card or a Trezor or a Ledger or any of these things.
I get what you're saying. Okay. I get it.
So now,
wait. Hold on. Let me wrap this up, dude, because this is a short show. Okay. This is what's going on. Okay. You don't agree with the business practices of these companies because they're not explicitly telling you, listen, this is what you're giving up. This is the privacy information. This is the potential disaster, right? That you could find yourself in because you're trusting Casa with 2 keys. This is the potential disaster if you just decide to buy a cold card connected to Electrum and then just use a random Electrum server, right? I totally get that. That's a valid argument. I understand that. I get it. So what you're against essentially is that you don't agree with the ethics of these so-called Bitcoin companies that don't reveal the best practices of using Bitcoin, right?
Yes,
is that
exactly.
safe to say that?
Yep. It comes down to deceptive marketing and deceptive setup instructions.
Okay,
Absolutely.
fair enough. And your way, right, just to wrap this up, but with the bow on top, essentially is, listen, I'm not trusting anybody, nobody. If you do it this way, there is no one that could fuck you. You're not trusting on a hardware manufacturer. You're not trusting on someone else's node. You're not trusting on anyone. This is just stuff that I could buy myself, and I know for a fact, right, that no one's gonna know I have shit. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's a decent summary.
Okay. Awesome. Spicy episode today, Phil. It's time for there's a software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. We've got Zap Desktop version 0.7.4 beta that was released. And what is that? That's a Lightning implementation so fast it zaps the fuck out of you. Anyways, it's down below in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. I always just write stuff for Phil.
Random.
He reads it, makes him feel uncomfortable. It's
Yes,
great.
it does.
It's great TV. But anyways, I want to give a shout out to our awesome guest. You can go follow him at JWWeatherman_. And if you want to check out his multi-sig solution, which I told you it's one of the best, but it is highly technical, just giving you a warning, check out yeticold.com. And if you want to learn Bitcoin in 10 hours, right, check out his website, 10hoursofbitcoin.com. It goes through A to B, everything you need to know. But anyways, guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective and the catastrophic fiat and shitcoin fails, definitely consider subscribing. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for another episode of Simply Bitcoin.